Welcome to the Cozza Lawcast, where life, business, and the law collide. And now, here's your host, attorney, and founder of the Cozza Law Group, Rocco Cozza.
Well, Eric, thanks for appearing on the inaugural interview episode of the Cozza Lawcast. So
thanks for having me.
I could go into a 15-minute rant about who you are and how
Please don't.
we've kind of crossed paths. But
Yes.
I'd love for you to give our audience a 2-minute spiel of who you are.
Okay. I am a lifelong Pittsburgh resident. Grew up in Coriopolis and somehow made my way back there last couple of years.
Okay.
Full circle. I was probably best known for running a company called Boogie Street Guitars.
Yes, we'll
worldwide
get to that.
guitar company. But the last 8 years, I've been a very active and I'd like to think somewhat successful realtor here in Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
So I have 5 collective kids, blended marriage
Okay.
with my wife Natalie, ranging from ages 17 to 26. So you can guess my age from there. But yeah, just a guy out enjoying life.
But I
and
think
loving
you're-
entrepreneurship.
I think you're missing one important thing, though.
I don't know what else.
The
could that
Eric
be?
McKenna Project. Come on, man. That's how
It
we
is.
first met, correct?
It is.
So tell us a little bit about the podcast
Sure.
before we go back to the Boogie Street days.
Yeah, right on. When we had the guitar business many years ago, which we can get into, one of the things that we did that separated us, being that we started in 98-ish, was that we adopted video to communicate with our customers. And we
Okay.
built a community with our customers before there was social media. So that
okay.
interactive thing was really not lost on us. We loved it.
Yeah.
And we had success with it. So when I got out of the business in 2014 and really dove and dived into real estate, naturally using video in real estate was easy, and I had some success
Yeah.
with that. But the kids got older. My wife travels for American Airlines, so
Okay.
there's a lot of downtime. You get older in life, and the things that were important to you prior are not as important. And I had some time, and I just was fascinated by all of the things I always was fascinated by. Still, people and events and how entrepreneurs did things, and just curious.
Yeah.
A curious mind led me to podcasts. Some really great and some not so good. But I was fascinated by the long form conversation, like how
Okay.
Joe Rogan, Adam Carolla, and those folks were able to sit down with people of any walk of life, it seemed, and engage in conversations. And I'm thinking to myself, wow, I don't really know if this is really relevant to me,
Yeah.
this topic, but I'm fascinated now because here is not a soundbite. Here is somebody having a real conversation.
Yeah.
And I found myself listening to things and opening my mind up to different subjects and topics that I probably wouldn't have given a second thought to.
Yeah.
And the podcast was just an idea. Like if Joe Rogan's doing this on a national basis, naturally I won't have the star power there.
Not yet.
But in Pittsburgh, I didn't see anything like that, long-form conversation. So the podcast, the Eric McKenna Project, was born out of just the curiosity, the fascination with people, but more importantly, I think now when I look back, it really had to do with the long-form conversation and realizing that type of communication is still very important to me.
Yeah.
And I think it's increasingly more important over all demographics
Absolutely.
of society.
Yeah.
Today, especially when we live in a soundbite world, we like to say we are the anti-soundbite.
Yeah, and I couldn't agree more. And I think what you've done, and the numerous times I've been on, I think it gives people, business people, entrepreneurs, just interesting people, a platform to talk about their story and their viewpoint. And like you said, we live in a society where everything's quick, right? We want information quick, want the sound bites. You're actually expanding the conversation and getting into more of the details about a person's thought process or the logic behind their conclusions. And I think that's an important thing, especially today with the way the world is, right? I mean, we can get into, you and I get into the political discussions and the current event discussions all the time, but I think it's very important to have that format because not many people get the opportunity to either put that out there or to listen to other people's long form. So I really appreciate what we do. And I've watched all of your episodes. They're amazing. So
Thank you.
But what I want to start with, so, the whole premise of this podcast is really, I'm a business lawyer, right? And I work with entrepreneurs, and I want to bring interesting people onto the show to talk about their entrepreneurial journey, challenges they faced, why they went certain ways, struggles, and use it to really educate the audience on the do's and don'ts. So I've always wanted to ask you, we never really got into the discussion, how did Boogie Street start? Because to me, it's fascinating. Like, I remember the initial discussions, you were ahead of the curve, and I think you said you started selling them on eBay or something.
I got lucky.
Yeah, so tell me how that business got started.
I guess I have to take it back maybe 10 years before the start of Boogie Street. So maybe in the late 80s. I didn't finish college, flunked out, and willed my way to white-collar jobs because I didn't want to do heavy labor.
Okay. What was one of the white-collar jobs you had?
I was in a warehouse initially for a company called National Draeger.
Okay.
It was a German firm up in Robinson Township, and they had an opportunity to work in customer service. Okay. So I begged, pleaded, and screamed, and they gave me the job. Okay. I'd be embarrassed to tell you what I was being paid, but it still, to me, was a white-collar job. And I was working in a professional environment, working with degreed people that actually accomplished things in their lives. Yeah. And I knew that I needed to step up my game, but I also knew that it would behoove me to study these people and find out what's good they're good at and be better. Yeah, I could. Yep. And that's kind of what I did. I just worked a lot with degreed people there, and then the next place, which was RPS, it was a precursor of FedEx Ground. And I got to work with so many wonderful people, and I learned, but I also learned that the skill set, your individual skill set, and how hard I worked on myself was actually even more important than paper if you don't use it. Yeah. Right? So I developed these things, got into sales, absolutely loved it. I realized, wow, I can make a fixed amount of money, or I can get in sales and have a variable there. Ooh, I can get paid based upon how much I work or what my effort is.
So that's a great point. So let me ask you this, and I know a lot of people that are in sales, and I mean, technically what we do here, it's sales, right? Sure. Were you motivated by the money or by the ability to control your destiny?
At that point in time, as young as I was, it was absolutely the money. I think the esoteric way of looking at life, the important esoteric way that I think I live my life now, or the vision of life was lost on me. I was really trying to I wanted to have the certain watch that I saw this executive have, the certain suit, or make sure my rent was paid, or have money for beers. Those are the things that were important at that time, up until marriage, of course, in the mid-'90s. Yeah. But I would like to think there was something at that time that was pulling me in a more, astute way of living. But it was really about money. Money was a big motivator, and I won't run away from that. I needed that was the carrot. Yeah, absolutely. But the variable nature of it, I realized right away that while I didn't like sports gambling, because I saw a lot of negatives of people losing money there, I was a risk taker, and I would bet on myself. I'd be willing to bet on myself, not some sports team that night, but I will bet on myself. Yes. And that led me to sales, which I really enjoyed. I had a great sales run with PageNet. That was the last corporate job I had, and I was with PageNet for 7 years. Okay. Really enjoyed myself there. So when I left there, I didn't leave there in some happy, euphoric state. I was really, when I left there to start Boogie Street, I was working someplace where I was having fun and I enjoyed the people. And I think that's a big part of life that we take for granted oftentimes. I mean,
that's interesting because my story, when I left corporate America to start my firm where we are now, I love the people I worked with. The job was great, but there was that essence of risk. And you said, you were a risk taker. You like the variable. And I think that's a common thread of entrepreneurs, right? Yeah. The people that I deal with on a day-to-day basis, friends and associates of mine that are entrepreneurs, I think they all have that common thread of a higher risk tolerance. Right. Because you have to, right? It's scary as shit. When you go out and start something yourself, it's like, wait a minute, you're putting everything on the table, but you are willing to bet on yourself. Yeah. Right? I mean, and that's what you have to do. And I think that's a common thing most people out there have to understand, because there are people that come to us that want to start a business maybe. Right. And I can tell that it's going to be hard for them because they're very risk adverse. When I'm talking about certain things they should be doing, it makes them very uncomfortable. And I think, to anybody watching out there, the one thing you have to understand in going into business, you've got to raise your risk tolerance. You have to, or it's not going to work. So you noticed early in your career that you had this tolerance for risk, right?
Yeah,
so now you leave PageNet, and so how does selling guitars come
it's
into
such
this?
a weird thing. I'd like to think there was this great. I wish I had a great story, like I could romanticize about that. The reality was that I went away for a trip with my wife right after our marriage. I had unfortunately lost my brother, my only sibling, and it was I was just dealing with grief in my own way.
Yeah.
But enjoying work. Work got me through anything in life. Always has. Went away, met a guy, said you run into people in the right time. He said, you got to find out what you really love. You got to find out your passion. That's when the first time the word passion came to me in the context of my vocation.
Yeah.
Right? I told him I never forget where I was. I was on the beach in Mexico, and I said, I love guitar and music. And he goes, well, why are you selling pagers then? Or why are you in communications if you love music so much?
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, the rock star dream died many years ago, pal. So I came home, got a guitar because I never took it seriously. The hobby just consumed me.
Yeah.
And while I just was buying guitars for myself, realizing that I better get rid of the ones I don't like before the bill came.
Yeah.
I just realized that I love the hucksterism. That's not a bad word. Hucksterism. I love the commerce. I love having my own little buying and selling business, alongside of my career. And so paging started to fade away. PageNet was in trouble. I saw it was coming. Cell phones were getting really proliferated this time. And I just made a decision, like, I think if I look at this, I've made a considerable amount of money on the side.
Okay.
Why can't I do this full time? I mean,
What year was that when you started that?
this was the decision was made. The decision was made to go full time in the fall of '99.
Okay.
And I went full time my birthday, January 29th of 2000.
Sounds like the peak of the .com days, right?
It was, and I was selling on eBay just because that was the only vehicle that I knew of, and it was so easy. The first guitar I bought was something for myself, and I hated it, and I knew the bill was coming, and I didn't want to share with my wife at the time what was going on, so I had to find a way of getting rid of it.
Okay.
And when it sold for a profit, I realized something's going on. So maybe there's something here.
Yeah.
And it was like the Wild West, Rocco. I would go locally and buy in volume.
Yeah.
Put it up on. I take good pictures. And,
Yeah.
The essence of everything I always did was in the beginning was I just wanted to be perceived as being honest and true and do the best business and best service I can, to the point where I was creating little handwritten notes to my customers, little stuff that I learned in corporate sales.
Yeah.
Sometimes we did, sometimes we didn't. But just things I could carry over to the entrepreneurship to make my service amazing, but make the experience of dealing with me unique.
Interesting.
That was the thing.
So let me ask you a question there, because I think this is a dilemma people have. If you had to, because I always say, right, anybody can sell a product. It's the service that comes with the product that matters most. So do you believe a lot of your success was that little bit extra you put in? Obviously you were selling good products and you kind of figured out the model and how to price them, but I truly believe successful entrepreneurs figure out that little bit extra. And in your mind, was that little bit extra, those handwritten notes, that extra service you put in?
I think so.
Okay.
When I started the business, I was simply buying and selling used guitars.
Okay.
I was like,
It's a commodity.
Exactly right.
Okay.
I also realized right away that most people, if they spend $1,000 on a guitar, odds are likely, at least in my mind, they weren't going to be repeat customers, if ever, or it's going to be a while before they came back.
Okay.
So if it was going to be a while before they came back, I needed to do something to leave an indelible mark on them.
Yes.
So that the handwritten notes and all that stuff. But what I didn't realize too was that I didn't realize how strong the referral network was, because the net was proliferating and message boards and community boards were established. So if I left somebody a glowing, raving, happy customer, they go on these message boards and talk about this new little company called Boogie Street in Pittsburgh. I bought this Les Paul off of him, and I got this personalized note, and it was I got a T-shirt. It was wrapped and protected in transit so well, yada, yada, yada. The referral opportunities when the web was young, as I'm sure it is today, still, of course, was the thing I realized that I have to do my due diligence because my reputation on the web is everything. And I learned that early.
No, and that's still applicable today, in my opinion. I mean, we're in the referral business, right? Lawyers refer other lawyers, clients refer. So I look at it from, that perspective of, we have to make sure we go above and beyond for our clients. And I mean, what you were doing back then is really the same thing I think people that are successful today do, because I know that my best referral source or my best advertising is someone that already worked with me. So I need to make sure I go above and beyond, give them that white glove service, make sure every one of my clients has my personal cell phone number. I know a lot of lawyers that don't do that, right? And I take their calls because I'm here to help. And I think, back then when you were starting this, you were probably ahead of the curve when it came to the internet, because I remember, I was 99, I was graduating college, so I was, but I remember buying things online and no one ever sent handwritten, and I was an online shopper. No one, and still to this day, if I order something off of Amazon or from any, e-commerce platform and I get a handwritten, I remember that company always. And I'm typically a repeat customer because I look at it as, wow, that's just, and it could have been a pre-printed, but it looked handwritten. Of course. It's just something extra. That's it, the experience. And that's what it sounds like with Boogie Street. Yeah. You gave them this experience.
And that's exactly what we called it. Yeah. And I, in preparation of sitting down with you, which I'm flattered, by the way, to be here.
Of course.
I was going through my journals. I've been journaling for almost 30 years now, pretty religiously. And I wanted to know when I came up with the phrase Boogie Street experience.
I was going to be my next question. How the name came
about. I actually did that in 2001 before I ever had the corporate arrangement with Washburn, and everything kind of grew. I found that out early. Like, I wanted to do something different. And because I was just buying and selling, and I wasn't a dealer, with a manufacturer or anything, I just had to find unique ways. So T-shirts, handwritten notes. I would buy extra strings at my cost and put them in there. I'd sometimes reach out to my client and say, hey, by the way, your purchase includes extra strings. What gauge to use? So I would buy strings in bulk.
Wow.
Just whatever I could put in there. And the other thing, too, was selling early on. eBay had their rating system, right?
Yep. Still have it.
Yeah, and the funny thing is, I just looked at it yesterday. I haven't sold anything on eBay for a decade almost, but I've never received a negative feedback ever.
That's amazing.
And it's thousands and thousands of transactions. So I took that very seriously.
Well, and that says a lot about you as an entrepreneur, as a business person, as a company, because look, even the best companies out there get negative ratings everywhere.
That was unacceptable to me, though.
But that's exactly right. But that's again, like, these are things and these are lessons we're trying to give people is, sometimes you have to put that little bit extra and, don't be satisfied. Like, that's what I always tell. Like, I tell my son that and my kids, in life, never be satisfied.
Right.
Because, you can be content, but not satisfied. When it comes to business, I think when people just become satisfied with what they're doing, then things start sliding backwards.
Right.
Because they start getting lazy. They start, like, that little bit extra you were doing. If you were satisfied by the way things were going or with the reviews as they were coming in, you might just, maybe I forgot to do one this time.
Right.
But because you kept pushing yourself, I think that's a very important characteristic that people need to understand. Like, if you can understand that nuance of being content and not satisfied as an entrepreneur,
absolutely,
that makes achieving success so much easier. But it takes work. It's hard to do.
It is.
So
it's a grind.
Well, that's exactly right. So as this company grew, so let me get to the legal side of it.
Sure.
Did you actually start an actual company, or is it just you as a sole proprietor?
Good point. So, this is one of the lessons that I learned early on.
Love it.
Was that while I did get the financial part of the business somewhat in order by acquiring QuickBooks 99 and learning all that stuff. Someone who flunked out of accounting multiple times. I don't want to tell you how many times I flunked out of General 1 and General 2. But I figured out that I had to have my financial side in order. The one thing I did not do, out of just either laziness or stubbornness or just, quite frankly, not understanding its importance was I didn't get good legal advice. I'm absolutely sure that there were things that I could have done early on in terms of setting up a corporation. I remained a sole proprietorship to the very end.
Yeah.
And I don't think tax-wise that ever served me. So that's a
No,
lesson.
not at
That's
all.
a lesson that, and even in the height of we'll get there, but in the height of our greatest years, I still was just flying by the seat of my pants in that regard. And so you learn hard lessons.
Yeah.
You learn hard lessons, and I'd like to say I got lucky in a lot of ways, but at the same time, I ended up making making it harder on myself.
Okay.
If it makes any sense.
Yeah.
You know?
And that's interesting that you remained a sole proprietor, right? Because one, you definitely did a disservice from a tax perspective.
No
right?
question.
Forming an entity and making an S corp election. I don't want to get into like a legal
Right.
discussion, but there's a big tax savings there. And the challenge I see with entrepreneurs, at least when they come to us, right? They're afraid of the cost of certain things. They think it's going to be complicated. And one, we try to make things very simple, but what I encourage everybody to do, look, if you're going to start a business, right, you have to get your foundation right. Like, it's like you're building a house. Building a business is like building a house.
Right.
There are clients that come to me. I'm like, look, there are certain things you absolutely should pay me to do. There are things you don't need to pay me to do. Like, if I'm building your house, pay me to pour the foundation. Don't pay me to paint the walls. And I try and make that analogy because people get afraid of lawyers. We don't have the best reputation. Let's be honest. Not a lot of people like lawyers, and what you see on TV isn't what it's really like in real life. And
You don't say.
and we try and provide counsel to people to let them know that there are certain things that you should be thinking about as a business. Like you as a sole proprietor, right? If you were making $100,000 a year, you were paying probably $10,000 more in taxes.
Oh, I'm sure.
It's interesting that you got right with the finances, but you didn't get the legal stuff. But let me ask this, why? Like what made you not talk to a lawyer?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I came from a very humble background.
Sure.
I grew up in Coriopolis. Wonderful parents. I can't say I grew up in the most worldly of backgrounds, and we had a healthy fear of attorneys. I think just hearing my father over the years, and just that mindset, like
what was the fear though? What was the fear?
The fear was that there was going to be runaway costs, and
Okay.
we weren't going to be able to pay them. Now, again, I had done a lot of things right in this business. I should have been wise enough to investigate what it really would have cost me.
Sure.
Because of course I ended up using attorneys for other things later in my journey. But that stigma of just being ignorant and remaining ignorant because it was comfortable didn't serve me well. Yeah, and that's a lesson.
Yeah, I mean that's a big lesson, and it's something I wish there was a way to let more people know. We don't. There's two lessons.
I'm here to tell you.
No, but it's interesting because one, the cost. I mean, there's always a way around that, right? There's always, and you got to look at the cost, do the cost benefit analysis, like what you're paying for what you're actually getting. But then the other thing I think where people do use lawyers, and I just had this discussion earlier this week, and it's people. When you look at a business, right, and you're trying to find someone to work with, like if you were looking for someone when you started Boogie Street, you could go to a lawyer that practices business law, or you can go to a business lawyer.
Right.
And I think too many people do the former rather than the latter. The former is like going to a general practitioner doctor when you have a heart condition. They know enough to say, you have a heart problem, but they send you to a cardiologist to fix it. Going to someone that's just a general practitioner that does some business law, they know enough to maybe get your entity set up.
Got it.
But they don't understand the nuances of business. Exactly. And that's why I tell people, if you're going to really be serious about building a business, and I mean, you grew a very successful business and then pivoted into real estate. If I could be advising you 20 years ago, I would say,
where were you?
I was still in law school. I didn't have my JD yet, so I couldn't have helped you. Maybe like through a
He was
law
at a
clinic.
frat party back then.
I mean,
You probably were.
Yeah, maybe, probably, yes, definitely was. But that's something I encourage people. Like, don't be afraid of lawyers, right? We're not all scary. We do a lot of flat fee stuff, so we tell you up front what this is going to cost, and our goal is to help our clients and the businesses we work with become successful. We don't look at things as a transaction. And
Right.
I hate when people feel that it's just a transaction. Like, no, it's a relationship. We're building a relationship. And
Right.
that's something, and you did that with Boogie Street, right? I'm assuming you had return customers.
Oh, and that's what happened. We ended up getting a lot of return customers. That was the surprising part about guitar collectors, because I wasn't one when I
Yeah.
started. I was barely a player when I started this, but I realized right away that it's an addiction.
Yeah.
So yes,
Okay.
I had clients that bought multiple pieces over, so they were return customers. But back to your point about comfort level and so forth, I got comfortable with my success because I didn't have that really well thought out business plan, because things just kind of happened and happened fast.
No one does.
But I really should have spent more time. And the irony of the whole thing, without getting off the esoterical band, we've talked a great deal. Because of the things that happened in my life and the directionless state I found my in right before I started the business, I really was diving into good material, Jim Rohn, looking for business mentors.
Yes.
And I really used a lot of that material to make good decisions. I just got comfortable. And what I mean by that is, when you're a sole proprietor and you know how much you need to make, and all of a sudden there's a windfall because business is coming from all different angles, and it is consuming most of your time.
Yeah, of course.
Things like getting an LLC or getting a tax attorney or getting a good business attorney, things like that are lower on the priority list for people, not wise people like myself, because that's what I did, and I just never gave it a priority. I'm not going to blame my upbringing for that. I'm just saying I was never exposed. Attorneys were someone that people like us could not afford, or people like us. That whole concept of an attorney was just things the McKennas just didn't do, because that was the stereotype I had on myself. Does that make any sense?
No, it makes. I mean, I grew up pretty much the same background. I grew up in Newcastle, very humble beginnings. I didn't know any attorneys growing up.
Right.
I always thought, attorneys, like they were in this different, they were assholes basically. Yeah. And then I ended up becoming one because, hopefully I didn't become,
not at all.
Yeah.
Not at all.
But no, I get what you're saying, and I think an important point you brought up there in business is finding those mentors.
Right.
Like, that's an important thing that I think because you can't, as an entrepreneur, even me as owning a law firm, like I can't know it all.
Yeah.
I'm not expected to know it all. I have to find people where I can get advice from, where I can get guys from. A lot of that is books. So I know you and I have talked about this, but what would be some of those most impactful mentors or books you've read along that journey that really kind of elevated you to the next level?
Yeah, for me, it also kind of started and ended with Jim Rohn.
Yeah,
because
he's amazing.
because Rohn was like the hub spot that introduced me to Les Brown and Zig Ziglar and other things. I had been shown material during my corporate years, but I was young, and this stuff was like, look, I'm good at my job.
Yeah,
I don't need any more training.
We think we know everything.
Yeah, I learned humility thank goodness I learned a good amount, never enough, but a good amount when I started my own business. And I tried to keep that at the forefront, was the humility part.
Yeah.
That I just don't know everything.
Yeah.
And it was proven to me that I didn't know everything.
Yeah.
But Rohn was good. And I think Jim Rohn is a good life, I don't know about life mentor per se, but just good material.
Yeah.
Nothing earth-shattering. When you read most of the material, it doesn't have to be anything you don't already kind of know. Yeah. But it's a really strong reminder to look, this is elementary stuff that you're not doing or not doing in the right order.
Yeah.
So, Rohn's kind of like the start for me. And then from there, it just branched out Bob Berg and some lesser-known speakers. Yeah. I dabbled with Anthony Robbins, but I wasn't too cool about walking on fire and things. Yeah. It wasn't like that didn't appeal to me. Rohn had that. Rohn had that grandfatherly advice kind of way of speaking.
No, and his advice is so simple,
right?
But yet profound. Like, that's what I always say. It's just you listen to him or read his books, and you're like, that seems so simple. Yet why am I not doing it?
Right.
And that applies. Right. And he does give a lot of life advice, but that applies in business because business is life. It's they intersect at a certain point in time, and you've got to understand how to navigate both successfully. And I think the principles you apply in one are the same principles you can apply in the other, just maybe with some nuance to it.
No question.
And I think with your journey by looking at Jim Rohn and kind of taking those principles into business, as Boogie Street grew, right? What were some of the biggest challenges you faced? 'Cause, I mean, every business faces challenges, right? And
good point.
I know we've talked about it, but what were if you can remember a couple really big ones that really either shook you to the core, or you had to adjust course, or you were just like, I don't know what the hell to do.
Yeah. So first one was 9/11. 9/11 was a big one.
Yeah.
It didn't slow, believe it or not, like the amount of orders. So I still was a used guitar salesman then. But it made people, I don't know, afraid of like just shipping guitars, and just the whole it changed. It was a seismic change in society. So that was a big one. In 2003, I wanted to grow something bigger.
Okay.
I should have at that time sat down, Rocco, and determined, do I want a lifestyle business, the biggest lifestyle business I can manage, or do I really want to grow something bigger than myself?
Yeah, it's a big difference.
And I straddled the fence, and that I think it was one of the mistakes long term that I made. But in 2003, we entered into an agreement with Washburn Guitars out of Chicago and got them to buy in the idea of doing exclusive work with us to create our own little unique niche of guitars.
Okay.
But again, it's a time where I should have had my own business attorney. I should have understood the things like trademarks. We were able to do a lot of great things with that company, put our own brand on clothing, put our own brand, Boogie Street brand, on guitars, doing things no other guitar dealer had ever done with any manufacturer.
Wow.
But again, the money was good, more than I'd ever seen.
Yeah.
And lifestyle was fun.
Yeah.
I didn't take care of the other part of it, the business part of it, and it came back to bite me.
Really?
I Chinese ended up doing some Chinese counterfeiting down the line, and I just found myself ill-equipped to deal with what came because I didn't have a partner in the process, which I think a good business attorney would have been.
Yeah, and I think just having even an advisor to talk to. So the interesting point of that is, looking back, you said you straddled lifestyle and actually like a larger business.
Right.
What would you pick if you can go back and do it again?
Oh, I think I probably would have still stayed on the side of lifestyle.
Okay.
But it would have been a structured lifestyle business that would have enabled me to be a small functioning business, maybe with 1 or 2 employees or contract workers. Yeah. But I never wanted to go that route and grow something so big. And the shame is, Rocco, like the Boogie Street name in guitar circles became a thing.
Yeah.
Very proud of that.
Yeah.
So the table might have been set to grow something bigger than myself. It's just that I don't know if I'm wired that way.
Yeah.
I was in touch with who I was. I can't say I made always the best decisions, but I was in touch with who I was. And I don't know that the organizational structure required, the management decisions, I don't know if that was really the best for me. So I think I made the right decision ultimately.
Yeah.
I just didn't execute it correctly.
Yeah, I mean, execution is always the problem.
No
right?
question.
But I think, to your point, and that's a big distinction that I think a lot of entrepreneurs fail to determine early on.
I did.
Do I want a lifestyle business, or do I want to grow an organization? And I mean, I can say that about myself, right? When I started my firm, it was just me, and then I hired Mia, and that was kind of like a lifestyle business, right? It was just, I was able to kind of operate how I needed to operate. Now, there's 4 people working for me, so it's become an organization. And to transition from lifestyle to organization, you have to become a different person. You have to look at the world differently. You have to look at problems differently. And I think, most entrepreneurs out there kind of just get into the mix and don't really understand what the end goal is.
Exactly.
And one of those questions they need to ask themselves is, do I want a lifestyle or do I want an organization? Because that can determine everything along the way. And I've watched people, I'm like, man, that's a really good business, but they're their own worst enemy because they don't want it to grow. And if they would have just understood it from the beginning, they could have adjusted. And it's so interesting to me that you kind of went through that journey. So as Boogie Street, grew, and then, so when did you end Boogie Street?
I ended in 2014.
Okay,
and that's a big jump. Some things that happened in there was we grew exponentially to the point where I had 3 or 4 part-time people coming and going for shipping and marketing, photography.
Okay.
So I had a mini organization, but I never bought into the concept. And here is the reason why I think, and I don't think we've ever shared this with you. When I really look back critically on myself and I read my journals, it became pretty apparent to me that, as humbling as this is to admit, I simply could not let go. I could not put trust in anyone else in my vision, my brand. I did this. I did this. And with the inability to trust people and let them do what they're good at, trust somebody that they're going to do a great job. The inability and the immaturity, I would think, of not being able to do that really hurt me. So if I could do it all again, I probably would still err on the side of being lifestyle, but I would be more open to getting help. And if it pulled me into a larger entity, I think I would go. I'm not set out that way, but I would go that direction. If the clients want your product, if the business is there, shame on me for not being able to get more of that out there. And the only way to do that would have been to grow an organization. Yeah, I see that now.
No, I
but my inability to trust people with my vision, and no one's going to do it better than me, that stifled me.
And that, in my opinion, is a common problem most entrepreneurs have, right? I mean, if you are an entrepreneur and you have that high risk tolerance, right, you're also a control freak. I know myself, I'm a control freak. I mean, this past weekend, my daughters were cooking dinner for us. Like it was an amazing weekend. They cooked dinner and lunch and breakfast. But I found myself in the kitchen hovering over her.
Shame on you.
But she actually, stood up and told me to get out of the kitchen because I'm like, well, you can cut it this way, or you can. But it's that controlling nature where, and it's a struggle. It's a struggle I face even here. Like I have a great team of people that work for me, and I trust them immensely with what they do. But I always find myself wanting to jump in. But then I'm trying to teach myself, no, if you're going to grow, you have to empower people, right? As an entrepreneur, you have to empower people and trust them because any mistake we make, we can fix, right? I mean, it's not the end of the world. Right. And I think entrepreneurs struggle with that because when we build something, right, we know the vision. Like I can see 3 years ahead. Like I know what the road looks like. And I'm like, how do you not see it? And but you can't expect people to have the same vision as you. You just have to empower them to create their own vision. And I think that's where a lot of successful entrepreneurs kind of figure that out, and that's how they grow the right teams. And it sounds like you kind of struggle with that too.
Well, okay, so I don't know if this was an excuse, but this is what I told myself when I came to this conclusion. Had I started a guitar business where I opened up a brick and mortar guitar store with one employee, and let's say I got very fortunate and it just took off, and I was making guitars in the back, and all of a sudden there was just a huge demand for this. We're shipping product out of this little store. There would be a template that would show me how to grow that business. I think what worked against me, uniquely to my circumstance, was that I started this buying and selling on eBay out of my basement. Everything from the branding, from moving out of my home to the office in Rossland Farms, there was no template. There wasn't any kind of business to look at and say, I'm going to model my business after that success model. We created, I think I was one of the first official internet guitar dealers for any manufacturer. So there was nothing, unfortunately, for me to grab onto and use it as a catalyst or an example. We were making it up as we go. Why that didn't serve me was that was the what I focused on being the essence of why I couldn't trust anybody, because you don't understand. I did this in my, I did this in my game room, and I did this, and I had this hurdle and this hurdle. Well, no one can really understand that, but that shouldn't have stopped me from making the pragmatic decision to get help and put trust in your employees. You have to trust people. If you're going to bring them on, you need to let them go.
100%. And I believe, look, I don't ever expect anybody that works for me to have the same vision as me, right? Because I've built it, right? And I see it. And I don't ever expect anybody to work harder than me because it's my baby. It's, I'm always going to be the hardest worker, and that's just the role I take.
Right.
But I believe, as a business owner or an entrepreneur, when you empower people and let them kind of find their wings, and that sounds like a very I don't even know the word I'm looking for, but kind of just a flaky way of saying it, but it's the truth. You have to let people find their path.
Well, that's how they grow too.
Well, exactly, because too many people try and stick them on a path or in a box, and it's like that may be good, but it may not. Let them develop and just guide them along the way.
Right.
And that's how you build a successful organization.
And that's hard. It's a hard. It's just a hard realization that an entrepreneur comes to, especially
Why
one
do
that's
you think
starting.
that, though?
I think it's a trust thing, especially with entrepreneurs that start with very unique circumstances that are just really unique. That uniqueness, it's just tough. Again, if you have a very good and well thought out business plan from the beginning, I think it can be a little easier. When you're flying by the seat of your pants and you're making more money, and my situation was unique. I was making more money than I could ever have imagined seeing in my lifetime.
Okay.
Things, and then starting to believe my own bullshit, that I can handle it all. It wasn't, but these are good lessons to learn. And if I can share these lessons with someone thinking about being an entrepreneur, I'm telling you, learn from my mistakes.
Yeah. And here's the thing. Look, I mean, we deal with hundreds of businesses a year, and I could tell you this. 95% of them don't have a business plan. And I even tell people, look, you don't need to sit down and put together the 10-page graduate school business plan with projections. You just need to know you have to have a map.
Right.
And a plan, not this huge business plan. It could be a 1-page.
Certainly.
Here's the things I need to do. Here's where I want to go. Here's the end goal, and here's how I reverse engineer the process to get there.
Right.
Too many people, I think, just start operating.
Of course.
And which is okay. I mean, it may work for a time, but then you get to a point where like, okay, now things have grown. Now what? And if you don't have that roadmap or that semi-plan, we'll even call it, you become a deer in headlights. And I've watched it happen.
I think it comes down, and you and I have talked about this so often. It comes down, you have to, if you don't have it, you need to acquire it, and that is humility.
Yes.
Because you have to admit to yourself that while your vision might not be able to be conveyed to anyone else like you would do it, true, you need to have humility to let people do what they're good at and let them help you. Let them help you. And the only way you get there is if you trust them. Yeah. And it's so
true.
It's so strange. I had so much trust in my parents and my friends and my wife at the time. I trusted all the people in my life that were important to me, but damn it, I couldn't trust somebody with my vision of Boogie Street. And I will tell you, as a young entrepreneur that really had a good amount of success, that hampered me.
Yeah. And that's a struggle again, but that trust in that like the saying goes, you can be a jack of all trades and a master of none. And I feel like
I felt that way often.
I mean, I've felt that way, when I first started my practice and the other businesses I'm involved in. Then I had to really grow as a person. And even over the past 18 months is where I really got focused. And I said, this is the only thing I should be doing. Like these 5 things, the other stuff, you get people to do that. Because if I spend time trying to learn marketing or trying to learn tax planning and all the other things, it's just going to distract from what I'm really good at. And I think to be successful in business as an entrepreneur, you really have to hone in and laser focus on what you should be doing and what you shouldn't be doing.
Right.
It's hard. That's the thing that kills people the most. They're spending, because people like feeling busy. As an entrepreneur, you like, I have this list of things, I tick them off, it's great. How many things on that list are actually moving the needle?
Yes. It's and Jim Rohn has a great great analogy, and it's not coming to me now, but basically it was being busy for busy's sake. You can be busy careening from wall to wall. Busy doesn't necessarily mean effective.
Right.
So I've always thought about that.
Well, and that's a nuance that people don't get, right? I mean, I've worked with people that I see they'll have this list of 20 things on their to-do list for the day. I'm like, wait a minute, like how are you gonna get all those done? And they're just like simple things. I mean, that's not, if you're putting that on a list, it's not really moving the needle. I try and when I come in here every day, I have like the sacred 6, but there's really 3 things. These are the 3 things I absolutely have to get done today to move the needle. Right. Then the next 3 things in my top 6 are, it'd be great if I got them done, but the world's not going to end if I don't.
Exactly.
But if I put anything more than that on there, like I'll have a list of like all the weekly tasks, right? Like just to dump things out of my head onto a piece of paper to say, this is the shit I have to do all week. But then each day I have that task list. And I think entrepreneurs need to find those systems that work because, when you grew Boogie Street, I'm assuming, you went from, okay, I can sell stuff on eBay. It's not that hard. Then you started dealing with, the manufacturing.
Right.
Then all these things were coming at you.
Yes.
How did you find a system to really help you manage all that?
I did. And I brought people to do photography of guitars. I really farmed, terrible phrase, but I farmed out a lot of the things I didn't like to do. So I learned that part of an entrepreneurship. And, we had to deal with UPS and DHL and, managing our carriers. And we had 2,800 square feet of office space in Roslyn Farms.
Wow.
But we also were storing the guitars in there too. It was an office where the inventory was like stacked up to the ceiling in there too. And then I would shoot videos. So I did bring a team of people on contract basis. And I started to figure out the essence of running a small little organization, but I could never let go. I used to drive home at night, at midnight sometimes, and I would stop at the office to look over how the shipping was done that day because I couldn't trust that the guy in there doing my shipping, he might make a mistake.
It wasn't Freddie,
No, it wasn't Freddie. No, that was another whole ordeal. But Fred will tell you, Fred Koala, my assistant at the time, I could not let go. I was always hovering, like you were in the kitchen.
Yeah.
That was me doing everything.
Yes.
And it just didn't serve me well. And we grew the business, ended up working with Paul Stanley of Kiss and
that's amazing.
Some really big artists through Washburn. Yeah. Wonderful time. And then as I started traveling and living a life that enabled me to meet these amazing people that I used to love growing up, right? You start to believe your own bullshit, and you do let go. But then you end up the trappings of success start to get to you, and it's really terrible when the trappings of success get to you and you still haven't put the fundamentals together.
Yeah.
The legal fundamentals, and then there's trademark issues, and it became way more than a lifestyle business. But in my mind, it still was that lifestyle business, although I wasn't really paying attention to it anymore, like I should have been.
Well, and again, that's a thing that it's a common problem, right? People take the eye off the ball. Once you hit a certain level of success, you're like, great, things are operating smoothly. I can start enjoying my life or enjoying the fruits of my labor. And it's good to do that every once in a while, but too many people really take their eyes off the ball. Then when you do that, things tend to fall apart.
It's called the 2008 mortgage crisis.
I mean, that's a great point.
Yeah.
It's a funny story about that. My business partner, we do some real estate stuff. Obviously, you just sold one of our houses. Fantastic realtor, by the way.
Thank you.
Sold it in 2 days, I feel like.
Thank you.
Over asking price, so I'll take it any day of the week. So if you need a realtor, definitely give them a call. But we bought a house to flip, right? I was getting married this was like September of 2007 is when that market, when the Lehman Brothers thing happened. Yeah. I was getting married in June of that year. We bought a condo in April of that year. Now this is me and my two idiot friends who I love to death. They're my best friends, but we can do all the work ourselves and flip this place before my wedding, before the bachelor party. The bachelor party was I think in April or May. We ended up buying condo, great price in Robinson. Ended up turning to be one of the best rentals we ever had, but we tried to do the work ourselves. It obviously took too long. Mm-hmm. We finished the condo literally the week after Lehman.
Oh.
So a guy that we knew had bought in the same place.
Right.
Sold it for like $136. We had bought it for $70, put like $8,000 into it.
Got it.
We're going to make a killing when we sell this place. Literally finished it because we were too stupid to hire out the work. Again, coming down to that, we didn't want to trust anybody else. We're like, no, we want to save the money.
Or pinching pennies.
Yep, that's exactly it. And the market tanked, and it just went, whew.
Yeah.
And that's a prime example of sometimes you got to know what you shouldn't be doing. And I'm the least handy person in the world.
Yeah.
Like my wife would tell you, like, I hate painting a room.
Yeah.
Yet we were going to put a whole kitchen in, flooring, paint. And that time that I remember just that market crash. It was just
a lesson, isn't it?
It was a lesson because we had such high expectations.
Yeah.
We're going to make all this money. All this would be great. Blessing in disguise because that property we ended up selling, I think, in 2018. We never had a day of vacancy.
Wow.
It was the best rental property we ever had. We got increased rent every year. It was amazing. But it's a lesson for people. That kind of goes into that, hey, know what you should do and what you shouldn't do. And that's something that we shouldn't do. And I think, as you become successful, and we had bought a couple properties before that, and we thought we knew what we were doing. Like, let's try and flip one now. I'm like, no, that's huge mistake, huge mistake. But it comes to your point of humility, right?
Yeah.
That was a very humbling experience.
Yes.
And it's,
humility, you either go there willingly, or you go there by force.
But you have to go there.
Yes.
Like to really
No
become
question.
successful, you have to have that humility.
It's easier in the long run to go there willingly.
Yeah. And what's interesting too, I think the older I get, right, the more I realize how much I don't know.
Oh my goodness, yes.
When you're in your 20s, you think you know everything. I got to figure it out.
Of course.
This is easy. 30s, I'm like, okay. Like I started, like my mid 30s where I really started to figure out who I was as a man, as a business owner, as a person. Once you hit your 40s, it's like, I don't know anything.
I'll wait till you get your 50s. now you can easily admit that you don't know everything and you really don't care.
But it's
you're not offended.
Like I wish I could go back and talk to my 23, 24-year-old self and just say, dude, just relax. You don't know everything. Because and this is entrepreneurs that they're coming out, deal with a lot of young entrepreneurs, a lot of young business owners that they have this rose-colored view of the world, which is great. Like it's optimism. I love it, but you also need a sense of realism.
No question.
You also need a sense of humility.
No
question. I think because if you don't go into a situation with at least that in the back of your head, life's going to hit you and hit you hard, and sometimes people don't get back up from that.
Yeah, no doubt. And for me, to echo that was so. The market crashes, there's all this upheaval, and these high-end buyers that I had that were very profitable guitars I was selling, they were spending $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 on our Boogie Street Customs. Wow. That market literally evaporated overnight because people were in a good financial position with their retirement accounts. People, and all of a sudden now they're worried about their retirement. They're worried about their entire portfolio. So my high-end buyers literally evaporated. So we had to pivot to low-rent guitars, which we did. I went through a divorce right around this time as well, financial hardship. I was flying as high as can be in a matter of like 5 months. The whole world, my unique little world crashed. And I wasn't mentally equipped to handle it. I wasn't tough enough because I had not put in place mechanisms in my business for these kind of potentialities. And it all started with not having my legal business life in order. And it came back to haunt me. So it exacerbated what was already a tough situation.
And there's a lot. I mean, look at the pandemic this year, right? A lot of people learned through, we're recording this in the beginning of 2021, but 2020 was the pandemic year. And a lot of people realized what they didn't have. They didn't have business interruption insurance. There were certain things that the pandemic just crushed them. So it was a huge learning lesson for people. And I always tell people when it comes to business, look, it's not complicated, right? You don't have to. We can make a very complicated business, but you don't have to. I always tell people, just do the things you absolutely have to do. Build that foundation. It makes you sleep better at night. It gives you that sense of peace. And it gives you the structure and the framework. If the shit does hit the fan, you know kind of what you have to do. Where you were flying by the seat of your pants, and it was great. Like you were making a ton of money, having fun. Paul Stanley, that's amazing. Like I actually went to Kiss's last concert in makeup, which was I think in early 2000s. I feel like I loved Kiss growing up. Awesome concerts. I'm jealous that you worked with him.
Solid guy.
I mean that's amazing, but. Again, like you saw what happens when you don't have a framework.
No question. I'm a living example. I'm the poster boy for poor planning when it comes to entrepreneurship. And I willingly, and that's why once we closed Boogie Street down and I started Realty, made life change, having the humility to.
What made you choose real estate? I mean, that's an interesting pivot.
So
I guess it sells, but I'm curious why.
I got the idea in 2012.
Okay.
I had been divorced in 2010 or early 2010, and I had met Natalie in 2012. We were dating seriously.
Okay.
And I just wanted more normality because of my poor planning. The last couple of years of Boogie Street, while we held our own, and I'm proud of the changes we made and customer satisfaction and all of that, branding. I was tired. If I think had I had a better foundation, Boogie Street would still be going today and flourishing, but it wasn't there. And I realized that I needed to find something that still enabled me to have all this freedom, which I was so accustomed, but I was also in charge of my own destiny.
Yeah.
But there was some framework already there for me. There was a system in place. So realty was a natural fit for me. It just, knock on wood, I met Michael Cowden at Howard Hanna, and him and I revisited with Cowden Creek later. It's just been a really blessed 7 years. I've just taken to it like a fish out of water.
Yeah. So what do you like most about? Because I mean, I know a lot of realtors. Yeah. So
people.
It's people.
Oh, it's not a catchphase with me.
Yeah.
I'm just curious. I'm so curious
Obviously
about people.
podcast.
Their stories. I had this really interesting, I won't say I have a fertile brain because I'd be wiser then, I guess, if I had a really fertile brain, but I'm a very curious brain. I just always have. That curiosity has served me well. Because I was curious about how things work and how people are feeling, and I would always really want to know why my clients are making the decisions initially that they are. Once I had a full understanding of what was going on there, I could be a better realtor. And I felt that kind of was not prevalent in all the realtors I met. The great ones really cared about their client enough that I could see the friendships there.
Yeah.
And I wanted to be that kind of realtor. I wanted to take the same skill set and the same philosophy with people that I had all these years prior and take it to real estate. And, again, knock on wood, it just really worked for me.
Well, and I think your philosophy is the correct one, because I believe every business is truly about people, right? You don't buy a product, you buy the person that's selling you the product.
Absolutely.
You don't buy a service, you buy the person that's selling you the service. Even us as lawyers, right? I mean, our services, I don't want to say they're a commodity, but if you have a law degree and you know the law, you can provide the service. I believe that people work with us here because they like who we are. They like what we stand for.
No question.
They like what we're about. And I think that's important in real estate, because you're right. Like, I know very good realtors, very good. That just,
I know
it's a relationship.
Absolutely.
I know other ones that it's just a transaction.
Yeah.
And that's a very important distinction, because if you treat a client as a transaction, that's all it's going to be. If you treat a client as a relationship, that's a client for life, in my opinion.
Yeah, and it's just fundamental things like that I always believed in, Rocco. We've shared this prior, you and I. But if you don't make money the central point of your focus, service and relationships the central point of focus, you will do fine financially. It won't be a concern to you. You can have everything if you help enough people get what they want, right?
Yeah.
The other thing that I've matured in my thinking of this, because I came into realty with no real understanding about what a realtor is supposed to do day in, day out, and what a realtor is supposed to look like and act like, and I had to understand and evolve my own persona. The last couple of years, I realized that I really need to be who I am.
Yes.
Now, I'm a reflection of society, but I'm also a reflection of who I am inside. And I'm probably not the realtor that you're going to go see the $1 million home with the $3,000 suit. There are fantastic realtors in that niche. That's not who I am. I am a common person. I am the realtor of the common man.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean I haven't sold $800,000, $1 million homes. I do it, absolutely. I don't limit myself in terms of potential client base, but I'm very much in touch with who I am. And I will not put on airs for anybody or anything. And that whole concept that we're launching this year for my practice and to tie in with my podcast is originality. You are original. So my clients are original people. And what they do, what they like, the music they like, the movies, the clothing, where they grew up, all of that stuff makes them unique. And the moment a realtor or a salesperson or an attorney or someone providing a service realizes that they're not paying attention to the uniqueness of that client, that is the ultimate way to take your eye off the ball, the proverbial saying. So that uniqueness to me, and focusing on that and letting people know in this campaign that's coming that we care about your uniqueness. I care what my client likes, dislikes, what their vision is. I don't expect them to reveal everything to me, but what they're willing to share, I like to know and understand them, because I can only be better of better service to them if I have that relationship. So I respect their uniqueness. I will never pigeonhole anybody. And I also am aware that I may not be the right realtor for everybody. Yeah. My dad used to say, son, you are an acquired taste. And I maybe not knew what that meant, but I always was just a little bit different. And but the last couple of years really embracing my originality, which the podcast helped me do.
100%.
It helped me feed that other need I have of engagement, and I just love people and ideas and thoughts and so forth. So it's a natural time, but I think originality and understanding that and respecting that can only lead to better service, whether it's realty, law, medicine, whatever your vocation is.
I mean,
be original and respect be original and respect originality in others.
Yes, and what you're saying, is the essence of what I believe. It's just listening to people. Mm-hmm. Your podcast gives you, and this is why I think you're so good at what you do as a realtor and as a podcast host. You actually listen to people and, play to them, not in an inauthentic way, but you understand who that person is and you respect the originality of it. Mm-hmm. And I think that's something that is lost in business. When I talk to a new client on the phone, in that first 10 seconds, I'm reading the person. I'm like, okay, what are they about? I spoke to a woman today, and I could tell she was super nervous on the phone.
Right.
Her tone of voice, her pace. So I knew that I had to sit back and make her comfortable.
Absolutely.
And put her at ease. It was a new client. I felt in that first 10 seconds that I had to just put her at ease. And that's what I did. Other clients that are just, they're charged up and excited. I get excited with them. And it's every client's original. Right. And you have to respect that. Like I can't, and you do that so well. And it's the ability, I think it really comes down to the ability to listen. Mm-hmm. And the ability to understand people.
You gotta care and be humble.
That's a great way of putting it.
I think it all starts with humility. Mm-hmm. Because if you don't have humility, nothing can move from there. Exactly. That's the core of it. Yes. You have to care. Mm-hmm. And if you really have humility and you care, then that sets you up for a really productive listening opportunity. Yeah. Yes. See, that's just, and again, whether it was corporate sales, whether it was Boogie Street, whether it was, and whether it is in my realtor practice or whether it's this podcast, it's the essence of engaging, but doing it from a point of humility and making sure the person you're engaging with understands that the humility is genuine.
Yes.
You may not like my view or maybe my clothes or the music I dig or whatever it is. We might not agree on all that stuff. But what matters is respect. Yeah. And I will be coming to you from a position of humility. So it's probably rare that I won't be able to find commonality because humans can generally always find commonality.
Yeah, exactly.
I guess that's, it's a long-winded way of just saying I come at it from I come at any interaction with humility at the forefront of what I do.
Do you think that's what's attributed most to your success, that humility and originality and I think a lot of what you do, from the podcast and just as a realtor, I think you give people the opportunity to feel heard. Because human nature is, right, we want to feel like what we say or what we think or what we feel matters.
Right.
In today's world, right, where it's very toxic right now, and people don't get the opportunity so much. And I think that's what you do really well. Is you give people this platform, and even with your clients, you let them feel heard, and that's an instinctual thing that humans need. Yeah. And I think that, in my opinion, that's one of the main reasons why I think you've become so successful and have been so successful, because you have that unique ability to do that.
My first real job, I consider to be a customer service rep for a company called RPS. Mm-hmm. And I think it all started right there for me because it was customer service. We were getting beat up for lost packages. All day long, I'm picking up the phone and trying to track down packages for a service that was terrible. But I worked next to a gentleman who no one seemed to like. And he dressed very poorly. I don't know if his hygiene was even that good, but you could tell that no one really liked the guy. Okay. But I would sit and listen to how he handled his business, and I formed a friendship with him because I found him to be a wonderful human being, different than me. Yep. But he approached every call and every human interaction that I could see with coworkers from a point of pure 100% humility. And he was so good where clients were writing letters about his service to them, and he would take the time with people that no one else would. And I haven't seen him in a long time, but that was a big lesson for me. I didn't want to be like him because we were just different people. Sure. But that level of putting humility first, I could see it could open the door to everything. Yeah. I could compete with people that had more paper than me or different position in life if I just had that humility and was just nice.
Yeah.
How
do you teach people that though?
I don't think you can. Well, I don't know if I was always that nice prior to that experience. So maybe I learned a little bit from him.
Okay.
But it was a lesson that I immediately learned that there was benefits from, and I took it and I ran with it. So I think you can, can you teach someone that doesn't want to learn? I mean, if you're open-minded to learning new things, you can learn humility, certainly, and you can learn the benefits of humility. I mean, selfishly, for me, I could see career paths if I just was nice, and I also realized that it's not about me. Let's help them get what they need. And quietly, they will be raving fans of Eric McKenna. Yeah, and I learned that a long time ago. Yeah, and it just served me well. Well, can I take a break? I gotta pee.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah. No, go ahead, man.
I'm sorry. That old bladder.
Well, so we're back from break. Yeah, which is fine. It's fine. We're running long.
Sorry.
That's all right, man. Commercial break. We don't have any commercial. Non-sponsored podcast. So,
that's right. That's what we're all about. At least that's all I'm about.
No, so that's a good segue. As we're transitioning to the end of the episode, I want to really talk, about the podcast, right? Like, I know you talked about it at the beginning a little bit, but when did you have that aha moment? Like, this is something special. Like, 'cause I know you started it and you were interviewing interesting people. When did you kind of get that moment? Like, this is something different, and I love it, and I want to keep doing it. And then, what is the ultimate plan with it? There's a couple questions there all at once.
Okay. So the idea was just basically to do what I love anyway, which is talking with people. Conversations are everything to me. First couple were interesting. I was obviously getting guests that were friends of mine, so it was an easy way to get people to come on. I was figuring this all out, but I felt natural behind the mic right away, which I didn't expect that I wouldn't. I remember when we met was the first time that we had a connector. Chris met us and connected, and I was doing homework. I bought your book and so forth. It was after you were on the show. It was Dareth Chisholm was kind enough to come down and do my show. And there were people that were really, squared away, educated professionals, prominent people that were sitting down in the studio. And I'm saying to myself, 4 months ago, this wasn't even like I had guitars stored in this room. And 4 months ago, none of this was here. But now these people are coming down talking. And you're like, wow, that was really something. Like this could be really amazing. In terms of direction. Yeah. But I just loved it. There's just nothing better than sitting down and talking with people, whether it's on whether it's a formal dinner or whether it's on a sofa in a coffee shop in front of microphones. It isn't about having something important to say. And the podcast is not about me, which makes it really easy. Yeah. And people say, well, how can you host a podcast? Isn't that nerve-wracking? I'm like, well, I mean, I'm just asking questions. It really is about the guest. It's not about me. So I think when you were on and Dareth Chisholm's on, I had Hirsch Venezi, one of the DJs from DVE, and these folks, I'm looking at them. Rick Seaback was on. I had Tony McAlpine, which was a guitar shredder from the 80s and 90s. His whole entourage agreed to do this show, and they just come down to my studio, and I'm sitting across the table from one of my guitar heroes. That's awesome. And I'm like, Tony, you're really there? And he goes, I'm here. So it was just one of those aha moments. So I don't know if there was one particular moment, but I realized right away that there's something special going on here. Didn't know if anybody was watching or listening or downloading, which it turns out they are, which is thankfully. But
quite a few people.
Yeah, it just... Nothing like it was in Pittsburgh. No, and it wasn't that I wasn't special doing it. I just had the idea and maybe the insanity to try it. That was all. And sometimes it just takes an idea. Yeah. Intestinal fortitude to do it. The drive, right?
But,
the drive.
But don't sell yourself short. I think, I mean, I've been on your show.
Not enough.
I mean, it's been on there quite a few times, 7 or 8 times, I feel like. And every time it's interesting because I think you're a very good interviewer. You ask very thoughtful questions. You listen to people. And you make it enjoyable. Like that is the key. And people don't do that, right? Like people are usually listening to speak, not listening to hear or understand.
We maneuver our whole life that way.
Yeah, and and you have this knack of being. I watch your face, right? Because we're sitting across from each other. When you're interviewing me, like I can see you're thinking and listening and letting the words digest, and it's always very an insightful conversation.
Well, thank you, but I almost want to say to you, Rocco, how far have we fallen as a society at times that isn't just the forefront of how we communicate, right? Those are listening skills we probably all learned when we were young.
But look at how we communicate now.
Maybe I don't know.
Think how we communicate now, online through social media. There's not if you look at how people communicate on social media, right, they don't have to listen. They just do their monologue. Yeah. And then people comment and they get into a discussion. But I don't have to listen to anybody if I'm on social media. Like what you're doing is different, right? You're giving someone a platform to come in, or multiple people to have a platform and talk about their ideas or what you want to talk to them about, and then actually listen to the responses and guide the conversation. The way 90% of the world communicates now, especially because we've been in lockdown or in this pandemic, we haven't been able to have in-person meetings or going to a restaurant or a bar and have discussions. People just talk at people, and there's no need to listen to anybody else. And that's the downfall with society. And we have to get back to a point where we can do this on a normal day-to-day basis. Listen to one another. Tolerate the opinions of other, actually respect what you're saying, and engage in a civil discussion. That's how we solve problems in the world. Right. And I think that's a lost art. And what I love so much about your podcast is it's a fine art, and you do it very well. And the guests you have been amazing. Like with the episode I did on the day before New Year's Eve was amazing. I mean, I just had so much fun of just 4 guys talking.
Yeah, and that's one of the first questions you asked when you came in is, do you really have a format? And that's the business attorney in you. You're looking at where's the structure here? Like, we're just in a very softly spoken way. You're like, so what? And I didn't, and I probably still don't have a real hard format, but the essence of it is conversation between 2, 3, or 4 people. I could be talking law with you. Yeah. The next day, I could be talking medicine with somebody else. I could be talking rock and roll tour stories, UFOs. The thing is, we try to shy from hardcore politics because I think there's so much out there. Yeah. But the essence of the show is real conversation, because only in real conversation do I think there's any value. The way we communicate today in sound bites, and we're speaking at each other in clips and back and forth online. I'm not saying we're not communicating. I just don't see any value in it. I've never found value ever in talk radio. It's just me. Yeah. It feels this way. I'm not saying I'm right or wrong, but talk radio, even when there's callers and things like that, I never felt there was an honest communication there. I always felt like the talk show host in talk radio, terrestrial talk radio, was giving them a second or two to say theirs, and then the talk host would extrapolate on it, or they would drive the narrative. There still was a narrative. I'm trying to create a completely different experience where there's no narrative and there's no point to any of it. It's just the expression of my guest, and then if I am able to maybe throw an opposite opinion or throw something or ask a question about it to try to get more information out, that's fine. But it really isn't about driving a narrative of any kind. So the listener, viewer, or downloader will take from it what they want, if anything, and that's okay.
No, and that's what's powerful about it. So So to ask this, kind of sum up question, what is the ultimate plan with the podcast? If you can, put yourself 3 years out.
Yeah.
What do you see with the podcast? I mean, I believe it's going to grow exponentially because I think it already has.
Fun, I think, if it did, because I think there's all kinds of crazy possibilities.
Yeah.
But not all those possibilities may be things I want to do.
Sure.
I don't have a plan for it outside of continually having people like yourself on who have interesting things to say and interesting viewpoints and can contribute, I think, to the national narrative if there is such a thing. And that's just about how we need to lead with kindness and goodness and to do cool stuff. Because I think by doing cool things in life, it naturally makes people happy. Yes. It makes people around you happy. And when you're doing cool things, people want to be involved. They want to be engaged. I'd rather have that kind of stuff going on than, unfortunately, the pandemic and things that we've encountered. There's enough of that stuff. Yeah. There's enough of Democrat versus Republican and this politician versus... There's enough of that. You want that stuff? Go to Fox News. Go to CNN.
Yeah.
You'll get it. Mm-hmm. You'll get plenty of it. Just go on the internet. You'll get it. Yep. Go to Facebook. You'll get it. I just want to engage cool people. Yeah. Let them disagree. Let them have a good time. Yeah. But really come to the table in a relaxed setting. Yes. No sound bites and just talk and have conversation. Yeah. I have no delusions we're going to appeal to everybody. But if people are finding value in it, I want to be the facilitator of good conversations.
Yeah. And I think people are finding value in it. I mean, I watch them. I love the episodes, and I do believe from a business perspective, it is gonna have that collateral. I don't want to say collateral damage, but the collateral benefit of helping you and just elevating who you are as a brand.
Well, I think so. I would be foolish to not deny that a realtor needs to expand their brand,
of course,
and meet people. Just
Anybody
in
does.
General. Yeah. I mean, any business needs to grow by meeting people. The show has opened up my life to people that I would have never met before prior. So there is a residual benefit of meeting people, but that's not the target of the show. I usually have the show scheduled out 2 to 3 months ahead. I'm not working on a whole year schedule. Okay. But 2 to 3 months, and things can evolve and change. I've been able to sneak people in a week. Sometimes it takes 2 months or 3. But there really isn't a plan. I know that's
no. I love it.
It goes against what a lot of business planning talks about. But I don't view it as a business where we have no sponsors. Right. We don't have a financial component to the show at all. It doesn't cost me personally a lot of money. And I really have no interest in monetizing it. I think it keeps it wholesome and real that way. And people will understand when I say there's no narratives, there's no agenda. There isn't any because no one has a lean on us or me.
Yeah, and that's what I love about the show.
Yeah,
it's just
independence.
It is. It's
truly
independence in the platform. So first of all, I appreciate you coming on and being on the first interview show. But
how about that?
I do want to ask one final question.
Oh boy, here we go.
And this is just something that I think it would be helpful, right?
Sure.
We talked a lot about the challenges of business and struggles. If you could give your starting entrepreneur self one piece of life advice, business advice that you think would have the most impact on your career looking back, what would it be?
Boy, the quick answer would be, and it sounds contrived, but it's not, really getting good professionals in my life early to help me craft my organization and my direction. Okay. But what's probably even more important to that, because it is probably humility, finding enough personal humility from the beginning, because that would enable me to meet those professionals. Yeah. But don't fly by the seat of your pants. And the only way not to do that is to be humble and realize that you don't know everything. You need to share your vision with other people and trust them to do a good job for you if you grow your organization. Yeah. But it all comes down to humility. Yeah. I think generally I was a humble person, but I didn't have enough. And I think any small, successful entrepreneur will fight the ego. Yeah. constantly.
Is intoxicating.
It is, and you need to fight that.
Yeah.
But I think being grounded with the concept of humility will lead you to all the good things you need to grow your business.
I love it, man. Humility's it. So if anybody wants to reach out to you for either check out the podcast
absolutely.
or as a realtor, how can they do that?
Fair enough. If you go to ericmckenna.com, it's kind of a hub. From there, you'll go to the real estate website or the show.
Awesome.
And
I'll put that in the notes of the
I
show.
appreciate that. And my phone number is 412-613-4466. Google me, or if you can't find me, you're not looking.
Yeah, trust me, you could find him. He's all over Facebook,
which is okay too.
He's fantastic realtor, fantastic podcast host. And again, it's been a pleasure, man. I truly appreciate it.
Thank you for having me. This is amazing. The new offices, everything
that's
going on here.
It's not like your setup. It's
not supposed to be.
Right, but it'll do.
Two different animals. I'm honored to be here, Rocco. Thank you for having me. I
appreciate it, man. We'll definitely have you on again soon.
All right, right on.
Appreciate it. Thanks. And thanks, everybody, for listening and watching, and we'll see you on the next episode.
Thanks for listening to the Cozza Lawcast, where life, business, and the law collide. To find out more about the Cozza Law Group, check out www.cozzalaw.com.